All right, welcome everybody to another episode of Behind the Lava Lava. I am Spencer. I'll be hosting today. We've got the whole crew today. We've got Michael, we've got Ati, we've got Johnny and T. And so thank you for joining us. This episode is brought to you by Matai Watches. Remember, you're looking for those perfect holiday gifts, something to, make your wrist pretty. Hit us up. We're official vendors at this point. So please reach out. You can find all that information on our social medias and website. So we're going to pick up from where we had a conversation with our recent guest, Yosamo, with Samson dropped a nice question on us. What does it mean to be a veteran? And so that really jogged our, got our brain juices flowing, and we've reflected on that some more. There's a little more we'd like to say. Also, we've got Johnny with us here. We'd like to also flip it to him as well and see what he has to say on the topic. But then we're also going to go into, it's the end of the year. It's December, got Christmas and the holidays closing in. And it's a nice time to sit back and reflect on what we've done this year. And so it's also going to dip into kind of a reflection time so we can go over that. We hope you'll join us and enjoy listening to this and reach out to us and share with us what you'd like to reflect on this year as well. So without further ado, I'd like to kick it to the cast. What does it mean to you to be a veteran?
Well, I guess I can lead this off since I wasn't here last time when Yosamo or Samson presented the question. But I like to believe being a veteran is a status that I hold as close to me as the same as, being a father, being a son, being a brother, an uncle. Like it's one of those statuses that means a lot to me because for me, at the ripe age of 19, joining the military, it was a huge milestone in my life because it taught me a lot. I know my parents were when I was being raised, I was raised to be, all of those good qualities. I was raised in Samoa, I was raised to be independent and strong and be on your own. And I've always idolized the idea of being independent. I know a lot of people that come from larger families, there's a lot of times, especially like when you don't have much at the beginning, when your parents are building and you have all these kids and there's 5 of us siblings, money was tight at certain times in our lives. So like, times like this, the holidays, sometimes the presents weren't as good, and other Christmases was great. Sometimes we had everything. But I always remember that growing up, I had to share a lot of things, sometimes I had a lot of siblings, so there was a lot of presents. So I always idolized the idea of not having to share anything. And so my dad always used to tell me like, hey, you don't want to share, go get it yourself, go be on your own, do it yourself. And so when I turned 19 and found the opportunity to leave the nest, to go out on my own and spread my wings and see if I could fly, the Marine Corps was the one thing that helped me. It was a very rude awakening for me to be in boot camp. That was, first time away from home. And so growing up in the Marine Corps, it was like that. It taught me how to be responsible for myself, do my laundry. I knew how to do laundry. I just realized that, I had to do it every single time, pay my own bills. I only had like a cell phone. So then I was responsible for my own cell phone, sending back money back to my parents if they ever needed help for anything, buying my own food, buying my own clothes. I had the options to do it. And it was just like, it opened my eyes up and it helped me grow as a person, no longer part of the family. I'm out on my own. And sometimes I was grateful for my family during the time because every time I fell, they were there to help me back up or, help me through hard times or rough areas. And so when I decided to leave the Marine Corps and start a family and raise a family and be there for my kids, I never forgot that footnote, that keystone moment in my life, those years that taught me so much of how to be independent. And so when I finally got married and had kids, I took a lot of those traits with me. And so I know a lot of us can relate, when you join the Marine Corps, the pride in the Marine Corps of being a Marine is eternal. That's a lifelong thing. We have that for the rest of our lives. We go back and they're saying, "Oh, former." No, I'm not former. Once a Marine, always a Marine. I'm a Marine. That's what it is. No ifs, ands, or buts. I earned that title. That's me. So now that I'm an adult, surviving in the world as a civilian, and now I'm considered a veteran, I take pride in that. And now, obviously, I'm not walking around expecting stuff from people because, I'm a veteran. You need to. No. I don't care if you ask. A lot of people. I get awkward sometimes. People ask me, "It's like, oh, were you in the military?" It's like, "Yeah, I was in the Marine Corps for a time." And he's like, "Oh, well, thank you for your service." And I'm like, "What do I say to that?" Oh, because when I say you're welcome, to me that sounds like I'm being too pretentious. It's kind of like, so I always get awkward every time somebody says thank you for your service, and I was like, "Oh, no worries. I voluntarily did that." That's usually my response. I don't like to say you're welcome because I did that for me. I joined the Marine Corps of my own free will. Nobody forced me into it. So because I did that for me, I earned that title, veteran. And, I do have a campaign medal, so that makes me feel good even more. And so it's like one of those things that if they ask, I'll tell them. But at the same time, the only liberties I take of being a veteran is that veteran parking lot at the Lowe's parking lot right in the front. I always park over there because it's just, I was like, oh, okay. I'll just subtly creep in here and park. But I'm proud to be a veteran. And it's, if people discount being a veteran, that's fine. We live in America. Everybody's entitled to their own opinion. But to me, myself, I'm proud of what I did, proud of what I accomplished. And I know my wife and kids are as well. And so I love it. It's like trying to tell me to discredit me for something I did. And I shouldn't be proud of something I've accomplished myself. I felt accomplishment in doing it. And so I will represent it as much as I want. And like I said, it is a free country, so I'm going to do what I want, But that's just my opinion on it. It's kind of scattered, but it's essentially it's what I feel. That's about as raw an emotion as you can get.
I get what you mean when you say it's kind of scattered because for me, it's kind of the same thing. It's a touch and go thing. It's a balance of I don't want to bury my veteran status because it's not something I'm ashamed of. It is something I'm very proud of. But at the same time, I also don't like to oversell it as well and sell it like it's something that people owe me something because of what I've done or because of what I do. It's like we're here as a volunteer military, and I'm glad that that's the path that I've taken. But I said it last time we talked about this, that it's more like I'm repping for my team when I'm unabashed of like, yes, I served, I'm in. It's not a moment for me to brag. It's me to represent for who I've rolled with and who I've been a part of. And it's something I'm unashamed of, but at the same time, it's like, yeah, the whole, I think a majority of veterans don't like the whole thank you for your service thing. And it's like, I'll take it because I don't want to tell people, hey man, don't do that, because we also are following a generation of soldiers who came before us where they got home and they just got spit on. They didn't get thanked for their service. They got shamed for it. And so I'm like, I've heard some of those guys say, you know what, enjoy your moment because we didn't get that moment. And so I don't want to be ungrateful for that. And so all I do is I just try to flip it back on people and be like, hey, thank you for your support because we do appreciate it. But me being a veteran doesn't make me any better or more worthy of a citizen of this country than anybody else. Like everybody keeps this country moving no matter what you do to contribute to society. I've had this conversation as well I have a friend who's a farmer by trade. Like that's his family trade. I'm like, dude, without you, we don't have food to eat. I'm like, thank you for your service, But yeah, it's kind of it's I guess scattered on it as well because it's like it's something I'm very proud of, but I don't want that pride to come across as bragging or elitist. It's kind of hard to find that balance sometimes.
Don't get me wrong though, like when I see when they look at my ID and it shows that veteran tag on there and they're like, oh, I'll give you a discount, or when Veterans Day rolls around, yeah, I take the day off, do my island hopping campaign, get my free breakfast. I'm all over that. There ain't nothing wrong with that. But at the same time, I don't walk into a store and say, Do you all have a military discount? I need my military discount. How come y'all? I was like, nah, man, I'm good. You offer me a discount, that's cool. But Veterans Day for sure. I hit up every spot that offers free breakfast that I can stuff in my face until I'm full.
Yeah, to me, being a veteran is now part of my identity. When I joined the Marine Corps, it was one of those things that I saw as a great accomplishment. So it was something that I wanted to do when I graduated high school. And when I finally graduated, it was something that I took great pride in it. And so when I left the military, I felt that a part of me stayed with the military, and I kept that. I kept my experiences with me. I kept what I've learned of leadership, camaraderie. After our session with Yosama, I started to reflect more on what it means to be a veteran. And I've come to the conclusion that I won't abuse the system, but I will take advantage of the benefits that is afforded to us veterans, especially for homeowners. We can get I think it's tax exemption. That's what it's called in your state or city. You don't have to pay taxes on your property if you have a certain amount of disability. So I've taken advantage of that, and that's helped me a lot with escrow and all that. So those are my thoughts. And what do you guys think of people who? Because when I served, I came across a lot of service members who hated being in the military. And when they left, I noticed that they were very pretentious of their service. They were so proud of the military that they were in, but while they were in, it was constantly every day that I heard their complaining and their bad mouthing of whatever branch they were in.
Hold on, before we go on that question, let me preface my statement by saying that I don't project my personal opinions onto any other veterans or how they feel. But so Samson asks, you're a veteran, so what? And that's something, I think about every day, honestly. And do I flaunt it? Honestly, yeah, with timing, especially when talking to my young athletes. Michael, you seen that, I've got a bunch of young kids who have minimal to little experience in any athletic endeavor. So I got to teach them the basic movements from the ground up, and just to let them know that I've been, I know about cutting corners. I'm a Marine veteran. I've made 5A athletic teams and 3A, and been through different kinds of trainings. And, circumstances like that, I flex a little bit. Like, yeah, I've been through some trainings. I know when people are putting out or holding back. But like I said in the other episode, like Johnny said, with his, with people who thank him for his service, you don't have to, because he signed up. Same thing for me. I was unemployed. It gave me a roof over my head, gave me great company, great experiences like you, Michael. And I don't know, like, overall, I'm just thankful to have the experience, and just anyone that's a veteran. We were all a little crazy to sign up in the first place, to volunteer, to be possibly put in a situation, whether special operations, infantry, or POG. And, sometimes POGs get put out there on security patrols. And we hardcore POGs in here. But I don't know, man. It's just an everyday thing to think about. And, like, how do we use this experience and this title to help benefit others? I feel like that's something we got to do, is we're able to receive this experience and have this title and sort of be looked up at. What do we do to benefit others and those around us? But, man, I'm all over the place right now too. So on to Michael's question.
You know what? I'm one of those that, especially for the Marine Corps. If I met them in the fleet, you're finished boot camp, finished whatever school you need to go to for whatever your MOS is, and now you go to your first unit, and we consider that the fleet. You're a full-blown Marine at that point with a job, and you're doing your job. So if I met them in the fleet and they're over, just complete downer, absolute turd, always complaining, stuff like that. And then out in the civilian world, they're back into full on. Yeah, Marine Corps this, hoorah sticker. What was it? I forgot the slogan. It was like something. Don't
Gung ho.
Well, yeah, gung ho. But the bumper sticker.
Sweetness leaving the body.
Vet
Yeah,
bro.
there you go. They wear stuff
You're the
like
vet
that,
bro.
and then they're pushing it. Like, yeah, I served, and regardless if I know that they were a turd in the Corps. To me, in essence, and this is me defending them, is that they graduated boot camp. They graduated MOS school. They earned the title. They were a absolute horrible Marine while in service, but they still earned the title. So if you want to go and flaunt it, go ahead and flaunt it. Now, go ahead and do that around the type of people, like, know your audience. If you're around a bunch of people that don't know any better, cool, do all that. But you go around a bunch of veterans, especially ones that know your background, you might want to, lower your voice a bit. Don't be as loud, because the ones that really did, especially those old timers that we're putting in, the retirees and stuff like that, they tend to be a little bit of a different breed. But that's just mine. If you earned the title and you made it to the fleet, then yeah, by all means, go. Not all of us fought in the war. Not all of us were in the trenches. Not all of us were lost a limb or got shot up or part of the Wounded Warrior program or Purple Hearts. We all had a job to do. We all did our jobs, and we're still breathing. So just be grateful of that. So yeah, if they no matter if they were a bad Marine, they're still a Marine. So shame on a flaunt. Go ahead, be my guest.
I like to take things from perspective, and I like to define things. As I was saying, what defines a veteran, and as I was stating earlier, you could debate me on this, but I don't consider anybody that didn't graduate boot camp, anybody that would call themselves a veteran. And I know of people that didn't graduate and they got military or medical separated from boot camp, but I know folks that are like that, and they're still calling themselves veterans, even though I'm closing my eyes and sipping my mouth. But anyhow, it defines a veteran. If you have gone through the spiel, did your time. Doesn't matter what you did in the military. If you did a small role, a big role in front lines, doesn't matter if you were a reservist, doesn't matter if you were a guardsman, as long as you did your time. And, I know we were, I just caught the tail end of what Johnny was saying about those guys that considered, shitbag in that sense. So, it doesn't matter, if you've gone through your 2 year, 3 years. For me, I did a full 8 years, and majority of that time was with the Marine Corps. I'm proud to say I'm a FMF corpsman. And I was attached to a lot of Marine units, although I joined the naval side. And I'm really proud of, my time, and I'll talk the smack out of it with any veteran. The thing about it is, and I'm pretty sure it resonates with our group. Veteran is a title that I hold dear to myself, and it's something that I'll uphold as much as I can to help other veterans to gain the benefits that they are entitled to. And veteran is a status, and it also comes with fulfillment of entitlements that the government, that we fought for and, we are entitled to. A lot of veterans, unfortunately, do not understand majority of the systems and the regulations and the red tape that is of their title. And I try as best as I can to help out those guys. As I was mentioning in our previous episode, that a lot of my uncles, they did their time, got out, and are having issues right now trying to navigate their benefits, and especially their disability ratings and all that stuff. But when it comes down to it, I joined at the ripe old age of 18, straight out of high school, and all I do know is the military. I'm sure it resonates with you guys as well. And it's been really hard for me to like figure out a lot of things right now because it's so in the military, everything was structured. A lot of things were structured. You had a time to be somewhere. You gotta what you're supposed to know, and now it's kind of like free thinking. You're on your own out here in the free world. You got so much freedom. I have so much freedom right now, and I'm so happy that I fought for that freedom and did my time to enjoy the freedoms that I have now. And that's one of the things that I want to let other veterans out there know. Do not be ashamed of the title veteran, because if you had gone through, did your time, despite what you did, be happy about it. You earned it. That's the key. You earned the title veteran, and never have any doubt, when somebody comes up and congratulates you, or, just your response is your response, but you're in your mind, in your heart and soul, know that you've done your time, and for this country, this great country that we call the United States. And I really, if there are veterans out there that feel otherwise, hit up in the comments, send me a personal link. I'll gladly help you. Or if you want to discuss more about it personally, whatever it is, hit me up, hit the group up, comment, like, so that's my piece on it. Just don't be ashamed of that title if you earned it. I know there's another type of, when you get out, you're dishonorably discharged. Now, a lot of, I don't know if you're considered a veteran still if you're dishonorably discharged. I would say so, because that's a type of discharge that could also be repealed. So a lot of folks out there that are dishonorably discharged, they don't know that you could actually get that repealed. So, in that mindset, if you're one of those guys and you're still considered a veteran, it's just that status that took you out of, the benefits that you deserve. Just do your research and hit up the group if you have any questions.
Real quick. Hey, so you brought up a good point last time that I want to ask that question, or everybody's opinion. Like, when do you actually become a veteran? Is it after boot camp, or is it when you actually hit your first unit, whether reserve or active? Like, when do you consider someone an actual veteran? Because I know some people, won't say no names, but they be claiming veteran, but they didn't make it to no fleet. You know what I'm saying? You're like, yes, you made it through basic, but I'm like, man, you just put the clothes on, bro. You ain't really do the work, at least in my opinion. So what are y'all's thoughts on that?
I think you're considered a veteran once you're acknowledged by your first unit. Doesn't matter if you're a top service member or not.
I tend
for
to
me,
disagree with that one. I think for the large majority, yes, you're considered a veteran when you complete your service, regardless of how it's completed, whether it's year 4, 8, 10, 20, 16, 25, 30, 39. Primarily, you're a veteran of the military when you graduate boot camp, from the point you graduate boot camp. Now, there are exceptions to the rule pending the discharge. Some people they get hurt during boot camp, and then they're medically discharged, or something didn't slide with the paperwork, or something fell through and it couldn't be waived. So then they're administratively separated, but they're separated with still under honorable conditions. Those things, those situations still dictates that they're still considered veterans because they graduated boot camp, but pending the circumstances, because sometimes paperwork falls through. But to me, ultimately, when it comes to those case-by-case basis, it depends on the discharge. As long as you graduate boot camp and you earn the title of whatever branch you're in, that entitles you to put on the uniform of that team. Now, if you were kicked out for whatever reason and had anything from that point, and you have a big chicken dinner or worse, at that point you're not, because the veteran status allows you liberties to these programs, that it gives you access to those programs. And the other stipulation, it gives you access is if you have an honorable discharge or under honorable conditions. If you have a bad conduct discharge or worse, you're not eligible for any of those programs at all that's afforded to veterans. So to me, is the only thing what considers you a veteran is if your DD 214 says that you're eligible to all the veteran programs, whether that's you got admin stepped or medically separated. Because there's a bunch of people that graduated boot camp or got hurt in boot camp. I know he wasn't in our phase when I was in boot camp, but he was the phase behind us. One of the kids got injured during the crucible, and the injury was in his foot, but it was so bad to the point where he got medically discharged, and the military was going to pay for it for the rest of his life, because that foot injury disqualified him for active service from being in the military whatsoever. But he got it in the crucible, so it was one of those. He got med boarded out, but on his DD 214 allowed him to claim veteran status. So from a technical standpoint now, if you're walking around saying veteran and you're one of those cases, it's kind of like an emotional roller coaster for them. And a lot of people like to overinflate or exaggerate sometimes. And to me, who cares? Let them do it. As long as they're not making money off of it, because you'll get called out real quick by people who know. But if you're out in your group of friends and you're trying to hype yourself up, go for it, man. Toot your own horn. It's cool, whatever. As long as it helps you out. But when you start hurting people around you, that's where it becomes an issue. And that's always been my thing. If you got pride, I will never knock anybody down for their service, regardless if they were hurt or not, because the status veteran entitles you to these programs. And if your DD 214 says you're not eligible, then you're not a veteran. Plain and simple.
So for me, I like the standard of actually, I really like how the Marines do things on their side. I think you guys started off right. I don't know how the Navy does it, but we don't do this in the Army. We get our rank as soon as we are sworn in. I show up to boot camp day one as PV1 Private Harman, and they're already calling me a soldier or whatnot. But I was like, how Marines, when y'all show up to boot camp, you haven't earned those titles yet. You haven't earned that rank yet. You might be on the payroll, but you're a recruit. And I always thought, man, you guys started off right, where from the moment you start on your journey, you make the message clear, you earn this title. And so when you set the bar as you completed boot camp, I see the logic in that as far as when you regard someone as a veteran, because I even compare it to like when I started truck driving, I got my CDL by going through the academy, but I still had to complete a certain amount of hours before my company would be like, look, we trust you driving a truck on your own. No, I drive for Swift, so there's a lot of guys who don't consider me a trucker still anyway. So, right, Johnny? But the thing is with that, it's all good. It's all good. A lot of Marines will tell me I'm not in the real military either, so it's the same thing. But it is what it is. But I think when it comes to determining like when is someone considered a veteran, there's a conflation of the terms of there's veteran, which often gets attributed to what we used to call specifically veteran of foreign wars. And it just kind of depends on how you want to apply the term. If you want to apply it to meaning anybody who served, then yeah, like you complete basic, you get your orders cut to report to your first unit. You're a soldier, you're a veteran, however you want to sell it from there. So I think that's a good line to draw as far as when that happens.
Just to kick back on that, so for me, when I initially joined, I came in as an E3. And the reason why I came in as an E3 was because of that 4 years JROTC in high school. So now, to me, and I'm going to clarify things a little bit. So when you initially sign that contract, whatever, 4 years, 8 years, you're already in the military. But to solidify you to actually entertain the rank, you have to go through, boot camp. And when I mean if you hadn't graduated boot camp and you're out here woo-ha, you know, trying to entertain the title, I think you don't deserve it. But i.e. the asterisk in there, as what Johnny was stating, was if you're going through boot camp and you get injured, you, of course, that lapse in your contract, you know, because essentially what everybody goes through with the military is you're entering into a contract with the government, and i.e. we're all contractors in that sense. So when you get injured, you get medically separated, and it was a life-ending type of injury where a heart, brain, something like that. And I would say it comes back to the process of when you went through MEPS or, MEPS, that's pretty much, and, these things weren't found, and of course, a lot of things get trickled down the cracks, and, there are those unlucky individuals that go through and they don't know they have their medical issues, and they're not found until they actually get to the real deal during boot camp. So yeah, Navy is kind of like the Army in that sense. When I joined, came in as E3, and I think I'll let the Marine guys answer that. But for that majority of the time, when I had gone through, it was just it was pretty hard and difficult at the same time, because not only had to go through the regular boot camp, and then I had to go through essentially the Marine Corps boot camp, which was way harder than the regular boot camp, because in total I had to go through almost a year long of training back to back. We call it ACE, you guys call it ART, we call it A school, and then after A school I had to go through FMF training, which is pretty much understanding the ropes what the Marine Corps has to go through. And I had to go through both of those, which is in itself is really hard, especially the Marine Corps side. I had a lot of freaking first sergeants, sergeant majors, man. These guys were freaking running us to the teeth, man. And I hated it, but those were one of my best ever days, was going through FMF, man. And and I call myself an East Coast Marine. I had to go through Camp Lejeune, Camp Johnson, through all the swamps, aside from Camp Pendleton. I loved it, and wouldn't trade the world for it.
So, dude, after that question, though, all right, say you got a veteran-owned business. We support veteran-owned businesses for the most part. I do, but let's say the business owner, and this person barely made it through boot camp, but then just somehow skated out because they couldn't cut it. They got other than honorable separated, but they're hanging on it. I know there's the technicality of how a veteran is defined, but in your personal opinion, in this scenario, like, what would you guys feel about it? Someone profiting like that? I mean, sure, get your money. I know a lot of us feel that way. Like, we don't, so what? But at the same time, like, is it respectable is what I'm asking.
I'll bite that one real fast. So I'm not a lot of veteran business owners know this, but in order for you to actually use the title of veteran business owner, you'd actually have to apply for that to be used in your business. And if you're using it and without getting approval, and another business owner, a veteran business owner, your competition goes through, there's actually, you got to go through SAMs. There's we could do that to ourselves. We could actually apply for that. It's either you're a service or a veteran business owner, or a service disabled veteran business owner. You can apply for both of those interchangeably, as long as you have some sort of disability, and we're entitled to that. Us, I know that for a fact. But if somebody is using that and they hadn't gone through that process, I kind of question the validity, in that sense. And I think you should be ashamed of yourself if you didn't. Whatever your history, or whatever the history is, that's your history. But you have to go through the proper way to utilize the title, in my opinion. So if you didn't go through the proper opinion and you're utilizing it for gain, like I said, you should be ashamed of yourself.
Yeah, it's one of those things where, as with a lot of things in the military, you've got to take certain things with a grain of salt especially when people are telling you about themselves. So the example that I kind of go to is In the Army, we have what we call the CAB, Combat Action Badge. And when I was a younger Joe, I used to look at guys who had those and be like, oh man, like these guys went through something. And some of those guys have, but it's like, it's the Combat Action Badge. It means you saw combat, but you're not infantry. And, some guys really were just mechanics. Their fob got overrun and they had to pick up their weapons and fight back. So it's like, okay, that's what that meant. But over time, there was a lot of guys who just got really into the bureaucracy and stuff. And the CAB started being handed out to, like if you were so close to where a mortar shell landed or something, guys busted out the tape measures real quick to be like, ooh, do I get my CAB right now? And it's like, what does it mean to say that you were actually in combat? And so I'm like, I might be able to check that box on a bureaucratic technical level to be like, oh, give me my CAB. But I knew that I couldn't wear something like that and look someone in the eyes who actually had been through combat and say, hey, check it out, man. I got my badge. I'm just like you. I'm like, nah, man, that's messed up. And so the problem is that when you see someone with a CAB, I will tend to give them the benefit of the doubt, but knowing as well that the meaning of that could be very watered down. So in the case of like even selling your veteran status, I'll give somebody the benefit of the doubt that they were a genuine veteran. They showed up, did their time, did their service. Now they're building a business saying, hey, I was also in. If you want to support me, cool. I can't take the time to investigate every single person who uses whatever title or claims whatever status. I'll try to give them the benefit of the doubt. But if I learn direct knowledge to the contrary, I might be feeling a little less inclined to go out of my way to support you. But like I said, I will give them the benefit of the doubt to start off with. I just hope that, they're not, like you were saying, in that boat of where they should be ashamed of themselves, because some guys do unfortunately do that. But that's where I stand on that.
Here you go, Jets. I got one for you. This definition straight off of Google. The term veteran means a person who served in the active military, naval, or air service and who was discharged or released therefrom under conditions other than dishonorable. So, verbatim, you are considered a veteran if you were discharged with anything other than dishonorable. But also, to be eligible for all the services, you have to have at least an honorable or other than or under honorable conditions. I keep saying OTH.
Yep. And that's why I was stating for all our veterans out there that did their time maybe 8 years and then they got, discharged on dishonorable circumstances. Now, those guys, that title, that's just a phrase that could be overturned. And depending on the circumstances, that always could be changed over to other than honorable, which is way better than having that dishonorable discharge. There's a light under the tunnel for our listeners that are dishonorably discharged, if you are a listener.
So, actually, T, I don't want to move on from your question. If you wanted to talk some more on that, I did want to go back and revisit the dirtbag question real quick. I just wanted to weigh in on that a little. Yeah, I know I've known a lot of soldiers who, complain. Actually, there's a saying in the Army where if your soldiers aren't complaining, something's wrong, because it's just what soldiers tend to do. Everyone's belly aching about something. And the thing is like, to a degree, a little bit of it can be understandable. Like, for as much as I love the military, it's not a perfect organization. There's a lot of times where it will feel like it's working against you. And we also tell the soldiers, hey, make sure that you compile your, what we call the I Love Me book, where you keep a copy of every piece of paperwork you get, because I guarantee the Army will lose that stuff. You are going from one unit to another, going from one deployment to another, medical records, etc. They will lose that stuff. There's a point where I was on my first deployment and they wanted me to put in my packet for my E5, and I couldn't do it because I was a ghost in the system. I'm like, how did you send me to Afghanistan with no paperwork on me? I don't get it, but it can happen. So the point is like, there's a lot of obstacles that the military and military lifestyle will throw at you. That'll be kind of a grind. And so if you're complaining on those things, I understand that's part of the culture, is to be expected. But if you're complaining because you're just a piece of crap that just that refuses to get with the program, refuses to just bite the bullet and just take it like the rest of us and just get through it and whatnot. Like, I don't hold it against you if you were complaining and you got out, but if you complain to the point that you were dragging your feet and you were a burden while you're in, and then suddenly you're Mr. Vet Bro once you get out, now I'm kind of annoyed. It's like, now you're like, oh, look at me in my grunt style t-shirt and I'm growing my SF beard, even though I just kicked boxes when I was in, you know. And I'm like, look, once again, to each their own. Like, I'm talking as a pogue. I'm Mr. Reservist Pogue over here. For our listeners who are familiar with that term, POG, personnel other than grunt, Air Force, it's permanently on ground. I don't know if other branches have their own acronyms for that, but I'm like, look, the point is, everyone has a job to do. I showed up, I did my job. I am unashamed of my service. I'm glad I've been able to provide for the Army that what it asked of me. But I can honestly say I met the standards. You know, I had a soldier who could not pass his PT test for the life of him towards the end of his run. He was like lifting weights all the time, but he would refuse to do cardio and refuse to run. Then as soon as he got discharged, he turns into a social media influencer, fitness coach. And I'm just, and he rocked his vet status all the time. I'm like, bro, when you were in, you couldn't meet the minimum requirement on fitness, but you're all right, whatever. But the point is, dirtbags complaining the whole time they're in, I can understand it. It's all like as long as at some point you can look back on your service and show how you were an asset and contributed, even if it's a minimal contribution, as long as you can say you did your part, I'll be cool with it. I'm not expecting every guy to be John Rambo in order to claim their vet status when they get out. At a certain point, it is something you earned, and, you know, flaunt it how you want. I don't know. Like that's mine.
I'll talk from the dirtbag's point of view. I was the dirtbag. Not so much I was a burden, but I did the bare minimum. I mean, well, I got to a certain point, and then I just plateaued and just cruised from there. Like, when I joined, I was pretty much just like a flat noodle, the way I was built, like an udon noodle, man. And then I got yoked, and I got egotistical. I started doing Brazilian jiu-jitsu out there in Okinawa with Flavio. Shout out to him. And I was in the best shape of my life, but I did nothing to improve when I could have. And I had, man, in retrospect, man, my leadership was so awesome and outstanding. Like, I kick myself all the time because they looked out for us. They fought for us. A lot of tough love, you know, didn't recognize it then, but I do now looking back, and I should have done more to get out of the terminal lance, you know, lifestyle. And that's what I was in. You know, I was like, man, I can bench my 350. I can squat my 600. Nobody cares about 3 miles, you know, and I just go in, I do my jobs. I don't need to worry about regs. I just make my uniform look decent enough, you know. But then when I get out, I'm like, yeah, love the Marine Corps, you know. Oh, yeah, fitness, sort of. but yeah, man, like I didn't really complain as much, but it was just that I just cruised when I could have done so much more, especially where we come from. You know, where I come from, immigrant parents, nothing but $50 starting off when they got married. Dad joined the Army as an old man at 28, went to warrant officer school at 40, you know, just to make things better for us. And, you know, here I am just being comfortable and having the best leadership you could ask for as a young military service member, no matter what branch you're in, and just not recognizing right then and there what you had.
Yeah, I just wanted to bring up that question in the beginning because I wanted to call out those people. And I'm very judgmental. That's why I wanted to call out those people. And if your feelings are hurt, I'm sorry, not sorry. I was a badass Marine, or I think I was. I was a gung-ho, semper fi, ura, devil dog. And yeah, I was basically like T on cruise mode, but I did the best that I could do for my Marines. especially as a leader. I also want to say that that veteran status, I'm not saying it's like this, but it kind of falls along the concept of being in a sports team, like being in NFL or Samoa. Whether you are a bench warmer or a starter, by the end of the season, when you win that championship, you still earned your title, right? You won. You are now a champion. So that's my thoughts on that.
And real quick too, like I just remembered, I heard this expression. I didn't hear it amongst my people because we weren't Marines, but I would remember hearing the term from a lot of guys who got out of the Corps, the expression "eat the apple, f the Corps." Did you ever hear that? It's just guys who were bitter because they were done dirty. But it's just one of those things where I think veteran culture, you liken it to a sports team, but I've always also heard it likened to like almost like a gang or something like that too, where it's like you might come from the worst scenario, the worst conditions, but you're going to rep your hood, and it's like our colors are camel. That's the difference. But I think that goes to a lot of the same mentality where it's like you might have had the worst time while in, but you definitely don't want to hear anybody who didn't go through it badmouth your branch or badmouth your service or something like that. It's like veterans will get very protective of that, whether or not they had a good time in service.
Yeah,
all right,
man.
so do you want to move on?
Oh, sorry.
Okay.
No,
Go
I
ahead.
was about to say, man, I was cream of the crop, man. I was over at OCS, Officer Candidate School. I'm pretty sure majority of all the officers that are out there are Marines right now. I've had a hand in dealing with those. So if you guys met all the good officers in the Marine Corps, yeah, you can thank me, man. I made sure a bunch of them apples were weeded out when I was over there. So I was an instructor / line corpsman over OCS. I think I pumped out about maybe four cycles of candidates. So majority of those guys right now, I'm pretty sure they're either majors or captains about now. So anyhow, like what you were saying, Spence, doesn't matter what you did while your time was in, you contributed a piece of your life to supporting this United States government, these United States, and you should be happy about it, So you got out and you're thinking back on your time and you're like, oh man, shit, I'm a shitbag or whatever, whatnot. And, I didn't deploy. Man, Johnny just put out the terminology or the, definition. You got out, you did your time. As long as you got that DD 214 stating that you're honorable discharge or other than honorable, you good to go in my book. So be happy about it. Wear it every day. Just don't do too much crazy nonsense. Try to go eat at the red hop or IHOP, every Veterans Day and trying to hug up all the food. I don't do that, but I only did it one time, but I don't do it anymore. So yeah.
Bro, you're missing out. You're missing out. First you go to IHOP, and as soon as you're done with IHOP, you go straight to Chili's. And after Chili's, you finish off with lunch at Texas Roadhouse. Bro, there's a path I go through every year since I've been out here in Roy. I found all the shops in a little vicinity, and they start at like 8 a.m. when they start. And bam, by 11 o'clock, I'm stuffed, home sleeping.
Let me just cast some shame real quick at my buddies that I made at ALC. I just got done with my advanced leadership course. I was in Massachusetts at the time. Had a really awesome class, really awesome instructors, but I was there during Veterans Day, and these guys, like, we're talking about where we're going to go eat, and they picked the one place that is not offering any freaking veterans deals. I'm like, bro, it's our day. We're a group of veterans, and you picked the one place that ain't hooking us up. So we went to Denny's, which Denny's does have a deal, but it ends at like 11 or something like that. And so they walk in and they want to get breakfast food at lunchtime. And it's so bad that they're going to pay for it on Veterans Day. So it's like, or full price. I'm like, you guys are the lamest group I've ever hung out with on Veterans Day. Shame on y'all. They were a cool class though. All right. Well, thanks everybody for your insights on all of that. There's always more to be said. I'm sure that as time goes on, we'll still chime in a few times on this. It's one of those conversations that's hard to like compartmentalize into a single conversation. So